I'd like to call the meeting to order in accordance with Open Public Meetings Act, PL 1975, Chapter 231. Adequate notice of this regular meeting of the Planning Board of the Township of Franklin has been provided. Call the roll, please.
Anthony Caldwell, Laura Grauman. Sure. Both Donald Johnson and Bruce McCracken asked to be excused. Alan Rich, Robert Shepard. Here. Gary Rosenthal.
Here.
Joel Reese. Yep. Cheryl Legallo. Here. Cheryl Bethia asked to be excused. Chairman Thomas.
Here. Okay, on the final agenda, no minutes, no resolutions. Discussion, extension of time to Batchnik Fine Foods, ZBA 15-00018. Who do we have for, or do we?
Is Frank going to come?
Yeah, there's a letter in your packet.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
but was he going to, he usually...
He usually comes, yes.
He ain't here.
Yeah. It seems pretty straightforward.
Are you comfortable presenting the facts for the public record, and then we'll?
Well, I'm not really familiar with the facts. I mean, I can read Mr. Linus's letter into the record, or I can at least summarize it for the record. It is part of the record. So the resolution was memorialized in July of 2016. On September 6, 2018, the board took action granting a one-year extension, and on January 19th, 2019, the Board of Adjustment adopted a resolution memorializing the action it took on September 6th. Since that time of the original approval and the first extension, my client has been working diligently to satisfy the conditions of the approval. However, after receiving the latest review of revised plans, my client anticipates changing its product line. This change in product line in all likelihood will require an amendment to the prior development approvals, and therefore additional time is necessary to proceed with the change in the product line. We anticipate meeting with the township professional staff to discuss this change. The applicant is seeking a second extension of the approvals and the period of protection of those approvals for an additional one-year period through July 20th, 2020. The applicant is confident that it will either be in a position to complete resolution compliance or proceed with an application to amend the approvals within the next year. So seeking an extension through July 20th, 2020.
What's the new product line?
It doesn't say. But the bottom line, I don't know if it matters what, I mean, the product line was, they were making some type of peanut-based product from what I recall, and from what I recall from the hearing, the manufacturing of that product line was dictating the design of the building, which affected the site plan, and what they're telling you is they may change some things, and that may affect the design of their building, may affect their site plan. They need to make a decision, and they expect to either proceed with the plan you already approved or come back within the next year.
Okay.
It's pretty straightforward.
How many times, additional times, can they apply for an extension? I think that if it happens again a year from now, we might enjoy seeing Mr. Linus present it.
That's an appropriate condition.
Otherwise, does anybody need anything? Motion?
I move it.
Second?
Laura Grauman.
Yes.
Robert Shepard.
Yes.
Gary Rosenthal.
Yes.
Joel Reese. Yes. Cheryl Legallo. And Chairman Thomas.
Yes. First hearing, Kristen Pastore, ZBA 19-00014. The C variance which the applicant wants to erect a one-story addition, 12 by 14, at 9 Terry Place, Somerset, Block 386.07, Lot 79 in the R20 zone.
I need to swear you in. Could you take the microphone in your left hand and raise your right hand? Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give should be the truth?
Yes, I do.
Right up here.
I'm saying it.
Yes, I do.
Okay, could I have your name and address, please?
Kristen Pastore, 9 Terry Terrace in Somerset, New Jersey.
Thank you.
Okay, this application requires a rear yard setback, 50 feet required, 42 and a half proposed, and that's it, correct?
Yes?
And you just want to give us an overview of what you're doing and why it's placed in that particular location? That-
Sure. Well, the original goal is to expand my kitchen and remodel it. Can't go back, I'll have to tear out a patio. To the right side is my existing dining room, which is already cantilevered 2 feet. So we're gonna push that out another 10 feet, expand the kitchen that way. So that was the goal.
So it's pretty clear if it's the kitchen you're expanding, you can't put it on the other side of the house or something.
No. And it's really only, when you come down to it, it's really only a few feet that, in the house that it's being expanded. So the addition will pretty much be the dining room.
It looks like the hardship that you're describing really relates to the location of the house
On the property.
lot.
Right, so the house was set on an angle, and my rear property line also goes on an angle towards the house. So the right rear corner is already at 48
So
feet.
they got you coming and going.
There's really no way around it.
When you look at the plan that the applicant drew, you can see the right-of-way, it's an end of a cul-de-sac, and the building envelope is actually very shallow. You have a 35-foot front yard requirement, a 50-foot rear. Basically, just this little portion in here is the buildable envelope. So there is, I think arguably a little bit of a hardship situation caused by the shape of the lot and the
Thank you.
placement of the home.
And you also said that there was a fence and
The rear
trees that would-
property, yes, I'm sorry, the rear property does have a 6-foot fence, and also most of it is lined with pine trees.
so that would have no impact on your neighbors. Have you talked to your neighbor about it?
Yes, at least one of them asked me if I could do their house.
Page 3 of the TRC report, in case the board is interested, shows the location of the subject house, the approximate location of the proposed addition, and the relation or, of that addition to surrounding properties.
Now, what about the impervious coverages? Is she going
That's
to have
actu-
to put stormwater improvements?
That's actually a really good question. Can I address it? 14 years ago, we put on a 2-story addition, and in that process found out that the previous owners never put in a permit for the existing deck. So we decided to tear that down and we put in a patio. And when I was submitting the package for this variance, I asked Mr. Healy if I should include that patio in the impervious coverage now, which I did. So that's what accounts for that large jump, because the addition itself is only 168 square feet, which is less than 1% increase in the impervious coverage. The patio has a drain.
Okay,
And-
do we have leeway to consider this?
Well,
separate?
so what you're saying is the 20% proposed impervious coverage that includes the patio.
Exactly.
So really, the board doesn't, the impervious coverage complies. So it really isn't a matter of the board. It's more a matter of, and we can work it out at the staff level, of whether they required to do any type of stormwater or not. And it's just a matter of whether it's, the increase is 1,000 square feet or more, and when that patio was done in relation to the ordinance. But that's really not a board matter.
Okay.
Bottom line is she'll either be required to do it or not, based on what the ordinance requires.
But you wouldn't find out until a later date?
Well, I think the good news is that we already have the downspouts on the back of the addition, the left side of the house, and the back side of the house and the left side of the house already tie into the drain coming off the patio, underground on the left side of the house. I've never had a problem with water.
Again, it's really not a matter, the impervious complies, even with the patio. The impervious is 20%, where 25 is permitted.
Okay.
So that's not a variance.
Anybody have any questions? We're open to the public. Is there anyone who'd like to make a statement or ask a question concerning the application? So no one seems to. We'll close to the public, and we'll look for a motion.
Second.
Laura Grauman,
Yes?
Robert Shepherd,
Yes.
Gary Rosenthal,
Yes.
Joel Reese, Cheryl Bagallo,
Yes.
and Chairman Thomas.
Yes.
Good luck.
Okay, good luck with it. Okay, Bonnie Lamer, ZBA 19-00013, 205 Park Street. And this is a C variance to construct a two-story addition, including a garage and a second-floor dwelling at 205 Park Street, Somerset, Block 240, Lot 2, in the R7 zone.
Are you both going to be testifying tonight? Okay, could you each grab a microphone in your left hand and raise your right hand? Swear the testimony you're about to give should be the truth.
Yes.
I
Yeah,
do.
right into the microphone.
Yes.
Could I, one at a time, could I have your name and address, please?
Bonnie Leamer, 205 Park Street, Somerset.
David Snyder, 205 Park Street, Somerset.
Thank you.
Okay, would you give us an overview of what you're looking to do?
You got to speak right into the microphone.
Yes, we'd like to install an enclosed garage so that we could comfortably get in and out of vehicles as we grow older and not deal with the weather. We would also like to install a handicap bathroom in our ranch house and also a laundry room on the first floor so that as we get older, we don't have to deal with steps and getting in and out of the car in the foul weather, and really just be able to enjoy our property as we get older. And to do that, we'd like to put the garage on, help us be mobile and go to and from our home. And we also would like to have a larger living space so that we can have the laundry room and the bathroom and whatnot. And we would also like to be able to have a live-in caregiver, which we
Was
would.
that what the second unit would be?
Well, yeah, it would be for a caregiver, but it would be considered a second unit because we'd like to have our privacy.
Sure.
And also be able to let the caregiver have their privacy because we don't know, we if it's going to
Well,
be family or
Yeah,
employee or
it's a
whatever.
two-family zone anyway, yeah.
That's pretty much it in a nutshell.
So why don't I walk the board through the variances? So I think it had already been, somebody had already said it's in the R7 zone, which does permit two-family homes. So it's not a use issue. The property is 14,169 square feet. And in order to have a two-family home in the R7 zone, you need to have 15,000. So they're about 800, 900 square feet short of that. Similarly, in order to have a two-family home, you have to have 150 feet of frontage, and they have, their existing frontage on Park Street is 92 feet. Front yard setback, and I'll explain this a little bit. They have, they actually are a corner lot in that they have frontage on Park Street, and that's the improved road that is in front of their house. To the right of their house is a paper street. So this is on the tax maps as a township right-of-way. It's not improved. I don't anticipate that it's likely ever to be improved, but nonetheless, for zoning purposes, it's a front yard. So they are proposing to put their extension, to that side of the property at 8 feet. And this was partially with input from myself. I basically advised them that, that's the side yard setback for the zone. So I basically advised them that that would certainly be the minimum that they should be asking for. And you can decide based on the fact that it's a paper street whether to grant that relief. And then the front yard setback on Park Street, it's 25 feet and the existing house is about a quarter of a foot within that front yard setback, and they're proposing to extend that. So that is obviously a very minor variance. So those are the variances, and there is a TRC report, most of which is informational to the applicant for when they submit for building permit. There is one comment where, have you had a chance to look at the building and impervious coverage calculations? Because when we did it,
Yes.
it was close.
I figure we're about 24.8% with the existing footprint of the house, driveway, carport, the proposed addition, and the proposed additional driveway space. Brings us out to about 24.8.
24.8, and that's of buildings plus pavement?
That's total yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
All right, so our calculations were a little bit higher. We had building coverage, and again, that's just the footprints of the buildings. The scale was a little weird. We've never seen 1 millimeter equals 6.75 feet, so we had to do some creative measurements. But we had it just short of 20% for building coverage and just short of 30% for impervious. So basically, what you're saying is you're not applying for those variances.
I don't think we need to. The existing house is 24 by 42. The additional structure would be 24 by 42 plus 17 by 23 foot.
So just understand that when you apply for building permit, or if you get the as-built after it's built and you go above those, you're going to have to come back, because you're telling us now that you're going to comply with the 20% building coverage.
That would be the total of 30% and 20% for the building, correct?
Yes. So you understand that? If
The
you
20%.
were going to go over, you would have to tell us now.
No,
So,
we have no intention of going over,
Okay.
absolutely not.
all right, thank you.
When I look at the plans, who drew the plans?
I did.
Have you got an engineer or an architect, or how are you going to build this?
No, I haven't invested any money into the architect, just into this process here. Should we get approved, yeah, we'll have the engineers and everything else we need to move forward.
All that's required of you in the Township Technical Review Committee memorandum. Have you seen this?
I guess we have. Do we have?
Yep, they require, the second page on the review comments requires a survey and some additional site improvements related to additional impervious coverage looks like on the street. So,
Yes, should we get approved, we would obviously,
All right.
hire an engineer to handle the issue with the
And
water
you'll-
runoff.
and you'll comply with all the requirements of the Township Technical Review Committee.
Oh, absolutely. We're looking for a lawful installation.
Okay, any other questions?
I have no problem approving this applicant, but because it's becoming technically a two-family house, should we put anything in there that it can't be used for rental? Second family?
That condition is not appropriate for the zoning board, but the town can regulate that.
Well, we have a license for that.
Right.
But we can't prohibit somebody from renting
Okay.
if they otherwise meet.
Any other questions? Open to the public. Is there anyone who'd like to make a comment or ask a question? We'll close. Look for a motion.
I think
No,
somebody's
she's
coming up.
got,
I'm sorry. Moving too quick. We'll reopen to the public. We need your name and address, and he will swear you in.
Could you,
Hi, my name is Michelle Milson.
And speak directly into the...
Hi, my name is Michelle Milson. I live at 211 Park Street, which is directly next door to the 205 Park Street.
could you raise your right hand, please? You swear the testimony you're about to give should be the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
My concern is that I'm directly next door to the house, and I know that there's always, construction going on. And I just wanted to know, is there going to be like a time frame on this? Because I have my children's bedrooms right next to that area where the driveway is going to be extended, and that's one of my concerns.
Can I address it? The addition's going to be on the opposite side. It's not going to be next to your house. The only improvement there will be that we improve the driveway.
Okay, so it's just the driveway.
That's all we're
addition is-
doing on that side of the house, yes.
All right, so that is gonna be over by where the fire hydrant is, that area.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, now we'll close to the public and entertain a motion.
Second.
Laura Grauman,
Yes?
Robert Shepherd,
Yes.
Gary Rosenthal,
Yes.
Joel Reese,
Yes.
Cheryl Begallo,
Yes.
and Chairman Thomas.
Yes. Okay, good luck with it.
Thank you.
Matson Construction, ZBA 18-00019, applicant requests to construct a single-family dwelling at 235 Jerome Avenue, Somerset, Block 564, lots 23 to 25 in the R10 zone. This is carried from May 16th with no further notification, and I will hope you can give us a quick summary of where we're at as we get started.
Yeah, before we do that, Mr. Chairman, I note that on my other application, which is after this one, there's only 6 members. It's a use variance.
And one of the members is leaving after this application, so there really will be 5.
So let me talk to Mr. Healy to see what an alternative date is, because we may not want to proceed with just 5 members. So if you give me a moment. Because all my witnesses. Mr. Chairman, if I may, with respect to the Engel Berman application, which is the last matter on your agenda, since there will only be 5 members, I would ask that that matter be carried so that I can have at least 7 members to hear that application. I checked with Mr. Healy. He indicated that the July 11th meeting is open, so I would request that that matter be carried to July 11th without further notice.
Okay, that will be done July 11th, no further notice. So if you're here for Engel Berman, LLC, ZBA 18-0006, that will be June 11th. Will not be-
July 11th.
I'm sorry, July 11th will not be heard tonight.
Now we just have to figure out which 5 of us are going to show up for that meeting.
This, to be honest with you, Mr. Shepherd, this board, most of the time is pretty good compared to other towns that I've been in. This is a highly unusual situation, but hopefully we will have 7 at that meeting. We're the only ones on.
Okay, I do remember, and I'm sure you'll get to, we were looking for some wetlands information.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Peter Lanford appearing on behalf of the applicant. We were here in May, and in May, we presented testimony through Mrs. Mattson, who is the applicant, and Mr. Fisk, who was the surveyor who prepared the plan, as well as providing planning testimony. There were a couple issues that were raised at that meeting, which resulted in that matter being adjourned. One issue was the question of the size of the house and the amount of the impervious coverage on the lot. It was our position, it's still our position, that we had a right to have the impervious coverage up to the maximum allowable impervious coverage pursuant to the ordinance. We had the right to have a house up to the maximum allowable building coverage, since those things were not creating any variances. The only variance that we were seeking was the size of the lot. However, Mrs. Mattson heard what the concerns of the board were, and we have, in fact, reduced the size of the house and the impervious coverage. I will have Mr. Fisk testify to that. So that was one issue that was before the board. The second issue was the issue of wetlands. We did retain a wetlands or an environmental consultant. I have a report which I would like to mark into evidence. And
I don't either.
so why don't we just
B1?
B1? The exhibit marked B1 is a report prepared by Eastern States Environmental Associates, Mr. Cook, who is an ecologist who went to the site, examined the property, and basically the conclusion on the last page is that a field evaluation was that there were no wetlands on the property, nor were there any located in a distance in excess of 50 feet from the property. We will also agree, and we will apply to get a letter of interpretation from the state of New Jersey to confirm that. But there are, in fact, no wetlands on this property.
So in other words, if we grant this, will be granted subject to your obtaining that letter of
LOI.
interpretation?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, and the third issue that was discussed, although it was not as important, was the road improvements that were going to be made with respect to the frontage along Jerome Avenue. As we indicated at the last hearing, Jerome Avenue was not improved along the frontage of the property. So what we did in the meantime was we prepared a new set of plans which were submitted by Mr. Fisk to deal with those issues. I would have Mr. Fisk sworn in, please.
He was sworn in at the last hearing, and he remains sworn in.
All right. And you're, Mr. Fisk, I assume you're still a licensed land surveyor and planner?
Yes, I am.
Okay. You prepared a set of plans that were submitted as a result of the comments that were generated by board members at our hearing on May 17, 2017. Is that correct?
We did. The plans have been revised to June 5th, 2019, and they were submitted over 10 days before the hearing.
Okay. Now, in our original application, we had proposed a single-family dwelling, and what was the size or what was the percentage of coverage of the dwelling?
It was almost 20%, which is the maximum allowed. We've reduced the size of the dwelling footprint by 15% from its prior size, such that it now is 1,252 square feet, which is actually less than the size of the houses on Howard Avenue rather than more. which it previously was.
Okay, and primarily the reduction was by eliminating or changing a two-car garage to a one-car garage and then making the rooms within the house smaller, is that correct?
Yes, the house is smaller, obviously, because the footprint is less by over 200 square feet than what it previously was. And the garage has been revised from a two-car garage to a one-car garage, such that this house is similar in nature, size-wise, in fact, a little bit smaller than the comparable houses on Howard Avenue.
Can I ask you a question, Mr. Fisk? Maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but you submitted some plans. Was it before or after the June 5th, 2019 memorandum from Scott Thomas?
I believe the June 5th memorandum from Scott Thomas was written before the revision was in his hands, if indeed it is. So that review by Mr. Thomas was based on the original set of plans, and I can say right now that we are going to comply with his recommendations in that memorandum, and we're going to satisfy the engineering department as a condition of this approval.
Good, great, thanks.
Okay, I would also like to mark into evidence, Mr. Fisk, this is the plans for the dwelling that were given to you by Ms. Mattson, which reflect the new dwelling, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and these are the floor plans and elevations. I would like to mark that as B2. I apologize that I do not have copies for every board member, but...
They were submitted.
But, yeah,
They were submitted, I think.
you have them?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll mark this one as B2. Mr. Fisk, in addition to reducing the size of the dwelling, did you in fact reduce the amount of the impervious coverage on the site?
Yes, we did.
Okay, and what was the impervious coverage when we were here last month?
The impervious coverage was almost the 30% maximum. We've reduced that to 24.5%. There was concern regarding how much impervious coverage would be remaining if this application was approved in order to perhaps put up a small shed or something else as an amenity. And in fact, the impervious coverage is now over 400 feet less than the maximum, such that a future owner will have an option of putting up additional improvements without violating the 30% coverage.
Lastly, you did address the issues that were of concern regarding the frontage improvements along the property.
Yes, we've shown a 28-foot wide road as requested by the engineering department, and as I previously stated, we will comply with the additional comments from Scott Thomas and work with him as a condition of approval.
One of the comments is if you install a 30-foot wide road instead of a 28-foot road, then you don't have to limit the parking to one side of the road, which will, I guess, affect your the neighbor across the street from this property.
Yes.
So what are they going to do that? Since that's in his report, which are you going to do?
I think we are only required to do the 28 feet, and that's what we intend to do. And as you heard the last time, there probably will never be another house built on the remainder of the street since the township owns the remaining lands and is not interested in selling them.
Okay.
So I think we'll
Yep.
leave it at the
Well,
28.
yeah, and I can, his report also says that it looks like the neighbor parks on that side of the street. So, board may want to condition that the no parking signs be placed on the applicant's side of the street. So you're not taking away that neighbor's parking spaces.
Yeah, that's fine. We don't have a problem with that.
We just received the engineering memo about half an hour ago, so we haven't had time.
We do that on purpose.
The applicant was provided it, how long ago?
No. You emailed it to whom? Okay, if you did, I didn't get it. We just saw it tonight for the first time, but Sometimes that happens, it doesn't get to where it should get, but we just saw it.
Your client was provided it well before tonight.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Healy. But notwithstanding, we reviewed it and will comply with everything contained therein. Okay, I have no further questions of Mr. Fisk.
One last item, which was not an issue, but I've corrected the zone chart to reflect that 20,000 square feet is required. So the board will be approving a plan that has the correct number on it for the lot size.
Mr. Fisk, can you explain, comment 2, he's talking about how the road shall be built, but then comments 3 and 4, he basically has really what amount to questions. Can you address how you're going to comply with comments 3 and 4?
I believe we already have, obviously.
You said you'll comply, but I don't think you explained how.
Yes, we're going to have a roadside swale off the edge of pavement, mainly on our side. We don't expect to have any disturbance on the opposite side of the road, which already has pavement basically to that edge. The narrow road is off-center, and most of the new roadway, almost all of it, will be on our side of the road. We're going to have a roadside swale, shallow swale, on our side. There's no drainage in the neighborhood, and it will drain to the north, as Scott Thomas says, and we will deal with an outfall if necessary once he sees the elevations. We don't expect to have any problem with the discharge of the water. We're really not creating any more water. We're just moving it to the edge of pavement of the new roadway that we're building. It was going to be in the same place before.
What about comment 4? He's talking about needing more topographic information along Samuel and both sides of Jerome.
When he makes that comment, he obviously hadn't seen our plan that was revised on June 5th, because it shows a great deal more information than the original plan showed. But if he desires any more, we will give the engineering department what they desire, and we will satisfy them.
For the record, Mark, we did revise the plans and submitted them after this report and not having this report in our possession. But based on the comments that were made at the hearing, many of the things that are in Mr. Thomas's report are already on the plans that are before the board this evening and that are on file in your office. To the extent that if Mr. Thomas may or may not have any additional questions or desire any additional information, we will provide it to him.
All right. Board questions? Any other witness?
No other witnesses.
If anyone wants to comment or ask a question, please step up to the podium.
Could you raise your right hand? Do you swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth?
Yes.
Your name, please, and address?
Luann New, 521 Jerome Avenue, Somerset. I didn't realize that there were new plans, so I haven't seen them, but I have a couple of questions. One, you talk about having a swale. Is it still the plan to hook into southbound Brooks sewer?
The sewer is the same as the last time we were here. We have an easement through the property on lot 28.01, so sewer will go to southbound Brook. That is correct. The swale is along the road, and that's for drainage. That has nothing to do with sewerage.
Okay, but it'll still be well water.
Yes.
So, although the house is, I guess, significantly smaller and more in keeping with the character of the neighborhood, it is still a 75-foot 100 lot, and you're having a well when normally you need 20,000 square feet for a well, so your property is still significantly undersized for well water. I'm not sure the report looked into wetlands and all. Does that also deal with the safety of having a well on such an, I assume that there's a 20,000-foot need for well water for health and safety reasons, and this is significantly smaller. That would be one question I have. The other question
Can
I
I
have.
respond to that
Oh,
one
sure.
before we get to any other questions? All of the lots in that neighborhood are basically on well water. Some of the lots, as testified to by Mr. Fisk, are on 7,500 square foot lots. Some of the lots are larger, but there is well water throughout the neighborhood, and every one of those lots is serviced by well water. In order for this house to be built, we have to be serviced by well water. We have to drill a well. We have to make sure it functions. But this is no different than any other house in the neighborhood, whether it's a 7,500 square foot lot, a 10,000 square foot lot, or a 20,000 square foot lot.
Okay, I thought the houses on Howard had water. I know they have septic.
Some of them do.
Okay, so you just said all the houses in the neighborhood have well water?
No,
but-
some have water, and some have water and sewer, and some have just, some of them, I believe the house across the street from us has well and septic.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
I am the house across the
Yeah,
street.
okay.
Sure. Yes, we do.
So we'll be better off than you because we have sewer.
Okay. Oh, and I was just wondering what the status is with Southbound Brook of hooking into their sewer system.
We have made application to Southbound Brook. They're in the process of processing the paperwork. Obviously, one of the conditions of approval of this board would be to get sewer from Southbound Brook. We do not have it as of yet, but that is in progress.
And do you have any kind of time frame? I have no idea. I know Southbound Brook is a much smaller town. They only meet like once a month, and they don't meet in the summer and all that good stuff, so.
Yeah, we're hoping to have it before the end of the summer.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Could you raise your right hand? You swear the testimony you're about to give should be the truth?
Yes, I do.
Your name and address, please?
Sean Dewar, D-O-U-G-H-E.
Head
And I
into the
live on-
mic.
Sean Dewar, D-O-U-G-H-E-R, and I live on Howard Avenue, directly behind the property in question, I guess. And the houses that next to mine and across the street all have city water and city sewer, so I don't know about that 20,000 square foot thing, but the square footage that I have would certainly enhance that square footage that they're looking for. But I've lived there for 34 years, or coming up on 34 years, and I don't have any trouble with the house going in, or I haven't had any trouble with drainage or any of those issues. And I just wanted to say that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, then we will close to the public.
Yeah, very briefly, we spent a great deal of time on this application last month. We were charged with doing certain things to put the board's mind at ease that we will be building a house that will not have an adverse impact on the neighborhood. I think what Mrs. Mattson did in making the house smaller and getting the environmental consultant out to review the lot should put the board's mind at ease. In addition, I would respectfully remind the board that we did send out the buy-sell letters, as we are required to do, consistent with Nash versus Board of Adjustment of Morris Township, to try to acquire additional land and also to offer to sell the land. The only party that was a viable party is the township, and the township did not choose to sell us land or to purchase this property. In essence, if the variance were not granted, this property would then be zoned in utility, and the township probably would have to be forced to buy it, and had they been interested in buying it, they would have done so. I think we have met all of the criteria that are required under case law in Nash for the grant of the variance. The conditions that we discussed of getting the LOI, getting the sewer from Southbound Brook are acceptable to my client, and I would respectfully request that the bulk variance for the lot, for lot area, which is in lot frontage, be granted. Again, the house itself is not creating any variances. I thank the board for their time.
Okay, any comments or motion?
I'll make a motion. I move that we grant Mattson Construction the variance necessary for them to build the house that has been submitted as part of the application and not a different house.
The revised house.
Revised house. At Block 564, lots 23, 24, and 25, subject to them getting sewer approval from Bound Brook, them getting a report from the DEP that confirms the findings of their environmental expert, in that there is no wetlands or wetlands-related property on the the subject premises, that they will comply with all of the requirements in the June 5th engineering report, and that the no parking signs that will be erected as part of that provision will be on the applicant's side of the road.
I'll second.
Any comments?
Just one, there's actually two TRC reports. One was from May 7th, and the June 5th was supplemental to that.
I'll modify my motion to include the first engineering report. So now I need a second again.
I'll second.
Laura Grauman,
Yes.
Robert Shepherd,
Yes.
Gary Rosenthal,
Yes.
Joel Reese, Cheryl Legallo, and Chairman Thomas.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for
Okay.
reducing the scope of the development.
Okay, we'll entertain a motion to close. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.